In this episode of the Sam Oldham podcast, I'm joined by Shane Curtis, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a professional fighter and coach. Shane's just travelled to America to compete in the main character event that was live on Flo Grappling. He sustained an injury in that event, but he's back on his feet and hoping to get back into competition next year. And this is his story. Shane, thanks for coming today, mate. I'm really excited. I think I'll start off by saying Shane also teaches me Jiu-Jitsu. I'm very much a novice. I started in January. I've told this story to our listeners. I walked into the Jiu-Jitsu gym and was like, is this a beginner class? Can I join in? And you were like, yeah, you can join in, like, no problem. And it was a real eye-opener. I got strangled about 10 times in the first hour. But I was like, oh my God, this thing's amazing. And it really spoke to me after retiring from gymnastics. Just to start off with, mate, before we get into your story and how you got into Jiu-Jitsu yourself, just tell us about that trip to America and obviously the knee injury at the moment, and what you gained from that experience going out to Texas.
Cool. So, me and one of our training partners, Macaulay, who is a very, very, very good brown belt from our gym. Okay. Who, funnily enough, we've got the same last name. So we, everyone always asks us if we're brothers, and we will just go along with it. We're like, yeah, why not? Because I keep hearing rumours that we are. So I'm like, fuck it, why not? So the Curtis brothers went on tour.
Oh, no way. That sounds cool.
So we went over to Austin, Texas, when we trained at a B team. Like, Austin itself is probably like the mecca for jiu-jitsu now.
Right, okay.
Never used to be, but like all of the top guys, like Craig Jones, Gordon Ryan, the Tackett brothers, like there's so many people out there who now just are based in Austin. Okay. So it's like pretty much the best place to go and train. So I spoke to Kieran Kitchuk, who's one of the like top B team guys out there, and he set us up with some training over there at B team. So we went over for 10 days, and we trained pretty much. We just went over there and trained. I'm not really one for sightseeing especially when I've already got jiu-jitsu to do. Like, quite ironically, considering I'm a professional athlete, I'm so lazy.
Right.
Like, I'm happy to just go and sit down and watch telly, go do my training, eat, shower, and then sit back down again and wait for the next bit. Like, it's weird. I don't really care that much for doing other things. It's quite funny, I find that. So yeah, it was a great trip to start with. Managed to train with some of the best guys in the world out there. Considering this is a gymnastics podcast for the most part, probably not going to know anyone's names, so I'm not going to drop anyone's names, but I got to go out there and we got to train with some of the best guys in the world, pretty much. And like, it's always great to see when you go where you are in comparison. Like, I'm in the jiu-jitsu scene, like I'm relatively well known over here. Okay. And it was quite nice to walk into the gym of people ready to know me. So that's always quite cool. Kind of like, yeah, it's just nice that you know that what you're doing is getting out there.
Yeah. That credibility, I guess, of walking in and people going, being accepted, I guess, in that environment of that level.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I understand this entirely, but when people go there who are traveling, a lot of people go out there to try and prove a point. Like, I want to go out here, I'm going to try and beat X, Y, and Z.
It's like almost taking a scalp, right?
Yeah, exactly. But what they say is when you get there, for most people, you can't go and ask the pros to train because, unless they ask you, sort of thing, because you don't want to go out there. You don't want to get injured by someone who's just coming through to prove a point. But it was quite cool that essentially as I stepped in, they already knew me, so I was just with them straight away. So I got to train with all of the pros. And it was nice to know that, like, I can hang with them. Yeah. Like, I've been to other high-level gyms before in America, in the UK, and I know each and every time I know, like, where I am. And I know I'm on that level, but every single time it happens, I get the same feeling. It's like, it's just nice to know that everything. Yeah, exactly. Bit of reassurance to know that all the training that I've done with everyone over here, it can kind of, like, it still works even though we're not in the Mecca sort of thing.
Yeah, because that's interesting. I remember Leon Edwards being somebody that was very adamant he was going to win a title from the UK, right? Yeah. Because everybody goes over to America. How quickly, Shane, can you feel the level of someone? Because, for instance, in gymnastics, right, if I go and train with the best in the world, pretty quickly I can feel, well, they're a step above me and I need to, it's kind of sink or swim, right? You either catch them up Or you just go,
drown.
I'm going to run because
Yeah.
I don't like this. I'm outside of my comfort zone. How quickly could you feel a difference in level even going over there? Or was it just that real, oh, actually,
Yeah.
I'm almost in some ways I've surprised myself with where I'm at.
I guess, like, it's half and half.
Okay.
Like, you can feel the level, and you know it's like when you roll with someone or spar with someone who is, you don't know how good they are, you can tell straight away.
Okay.
If they're good or if they're still a beginner or whatever level they're at, you can kind of tell. And it was the same there. I went in, you can tell how good they are, but also it was like, oh, they're good, but I'm keeping up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm catching them, or like we're having like back and forth rounds and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty, like you say, you can tell straight away. But I was able to keep up. I always find, I don't know if it's the same in gymnastics or even other sports, but I always elevate to the level of the person I'm training with, I feel like. And on the flip side, sometimes I kind of regress to the level of someone if they are like a beginner, because like you get the wrong responses from people. Like, but when you're better, I feel like I have to be more switched on, and just automatically I am. And it kind of, so from that, I feel like that's why going out there and training with these really high-level people makes a difference, because it makes you better as well.
Is that something you'd look to do more of in the future, Shane? Because I used to do that. So when I was a kid, I would try and find the best kid in my group and just try and latch onto him.
Yeah.
If he's doing 10, I'm doing 11. And I'll figure out how to beat him, and then I'll find the next one and the next one. But I got to a point around the age of 2021 where I was the best in my club and one of the best in the country, and then there was no one else to shoot for. I had to then start going online to find the best guys and see what they were doing and ask questions. But it became more difficult because I wasn't around, like, I wasn't in a room full of killers all the time.
Yeah.
Is that something that you find being in the UK? That's maybe one of the disadvantages of being in maybe a niche sport within the UK, not being out there where the mecca is. It's harder to try and find those training partners that are that level above you. They're fewer and far between.
I think, like, I'd like you said with Leon Edwards, he wants to do it out of the UK. I feel like that is completely possible. The fact that I've always been at the same gym, not to say I haven't gone and trained with other people, like, throughout my career, but, like, not consistently, just kind of, like, bitting and bobbing sort of thing. So it's like, you don't have to go out there and find those people. You just have to understand how to train.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely good to go out there and feel those levels and, like, learn things from these people, but I don't think it's essential to go out there and always be there. I'm sure it probably makes a difference, but if you can understand how to improve, like, how you learn, and, like, how to learn from others, even if they're not on the same level as you, then I think that's what's most important. Because at our gym, funnily enough, we actually do probably have one of the best gyms in the UK. It's like, there are a few gyms, but, like, considering Paul, I don't know, you've met Paul, I think.
Yeah, I think he took one of the sessions a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
right?
when I was away.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Paul is ridiculously good. Like, he's just so good. He's really very, very good. And I was just quite lucky that I think I walked into the gym the first time, like, pretty much my first gym, and he just happened to be my coach. And, like, he is very, very, very good. But, like, it doesn't mean that everyone you train with has to be at that level.
Yeah.
Because you can learn something from anyone, pretty much. Like, you know, if I'm rolling with someone in the gym who isn't quite as good, so you just put yourself in this position that you're not as good at, then you can learn from that.
Yeah.
Like, different people react to things differently as well. So you can learn a different response from this person as you will from this person. Like, that's the beauty about Jiu-Jitsu. It's so individual.
And I imagine as well, and I might be wrong, but maybe if you're rolling with a beginner, providing that they're not putting you at risk by not quite understanding what they're doing, they've not got these fundamentals. They're not hardwired and being trained a certain way, so they might do something completely outside of the box. So it's almost, that might be sometimes an advantage of training with people that aren't at your level, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then, even if someone isn't a beginner and they still are experienced but just not quite as experienced, I like to just put myself in a spot that I just know I'm not as good at. Like, maybe even just let them get to a good position so I can escape. Like right now, for example, as I've injured my knee which I'll get back onto because we're going on a massive tangent here.
That's okay. I'm enjoying it, mate.
It's
Don't
what I
worry.
do as well. I've just been playing bad positions where I'm literally just doing jiu-jitsu without my legs. Funny enough though, like I have been thinking to myself since injured myself, I'm glad that I've injured myself at a black belt, because I probably, if I'd done this at a blue belt level or like a beginner level, it'd be a lot harder to continue training with an injury.
Right.
But I think because I know how to use my body, I know how to control other people, then it's easy for me to look after myself even though I'm injured.
Yeah.
So yeah, at the moment I'm just playing these bad positions and learning from there and making people feel in danger from what is typically a good position for them.
Mm-hmm.
So like even with injuries, you can still learn.
Yeah.
I don't know in gymnastics if it's the same, if like you will need to work on something.
There's always something to do.
Like-
Yeah, gymnastics is a great sport, mate, because obviously you use your whole body, right? So
Yeah.
6 apparatus, legs, upper body, hang. So even if you break it, I mean, I think I broke my leg when I was like 9 or 10, so I had a cast on, but I was still tumbling on a cast. So not that that's the correct thing to be doing,
Yeah,
but
well,
there's always
same.
something, or if someone injures their arm, they'll do floor with one hand, like... There's always something that you can be doing, and it sounds like you've done exactly the same thing, right? What can I control right now? Well, I can't use my legs, let's use my arms.
Yeah,
Which is
exactly.
a brilliant position to be in. How did you actually injure your knee, mate?
Oh gosh, it was essentially a freak accident.
Okay.
14 seconds into my match. So I went out there to fight a guy called Max Hansen, who is like one of the best in the world.
Okay.
And after training at B Team as well, all those guys were like, yeah, we think you're going to beat him. Like these best guys in the world who are like probably better than Max anyway. They were all like that. We're so excited to watch your match. They even stayed to watch it because they were like really excited to see me beat him. And then it was a small wrestling exchange. We got towards the edge of the mat. I planted my foot to kind of stop us going out of bounds. But as I did, he went for what you call a knee tap, where you have an underhook and then you tap my knee to take me down. But what happened is my foot got stuck on the mat.
Okay.
As he tapped my knee kind of went inwards and obviously tore my MCL. Luckily, I don't think it wasn't a complete tear, which is good because I don't need surgery. We're looking at maybe a grade 1, at the most a grade 2.
Okay.
But considering the speed of the recovery so far, it's probably only a grade 1. But I couldn't really walk for a couple of days, which like initially made me feel like it was
maybe more serious than
yeah, but I don't know if just because I'm always training properly, I eat properly, like I don't drink, I don't do drugs, like because I look after myself, maybe my body's just recovering a bit quicker.
Yeah.
And I got into the rehab straight away. I do everything properly.
Yeah.
Like I tore my ACL 12 years ago. When I was like 18 playing rugby. Football actually, in rugby boots at college, and like eventually when I got that surgery, I put everything into my rehab to make sure that I came back.
And was
properly.
that with the plan to come back and play football, Shane, or were you already doing jiu-jitsu at that point?
So as a kid, I played rugby. Like I was a left wing. I was just like I was super fast and I just ran. And then when I was at college, they made me play football in rugby boots after me telling them that, it's all I've got. I don't think I should do it.
You're right.
And they were like, no, you've got to do it. I was like, okay. I planted my foot in my rugby boots and turned. And because I turned, I essentially heel hooked myself. But I tore my ACL because my foot didn't move, but my body did. And then I never got the surgery. Like afterwards, I just stopped playing rugby. I didn't even finish my college course because it was like sport performance. And I kind of drifted a little bit away from sport there. And then when I was 21, I started wanting to get into MMA. And then I think it was my first session, like after doing some stand-up in an MMA class, I took a step backwards and like just fully straightened my leg, and my knee collapsed from underneath me. Didn't hurt, it just collapsed, and I was like, fuck. So I trained maybe once or twice a week for 3 months, 4 months maybe. But as soon as that first session had ended, though, I did contact like the doctors so I could get a scan and then have my surgery. So like I trained very minimally for like 3 or 4 months, doing like MMA and a little bit of jiu-jitsu. Not much at all, maybe twice a week.
Okay.
And then the aim was to have the surgery and then just come back and do MMA.
Yeah. And were you hooked at that point? You know, you'd only done 2 or 3 months, but did you already kind of get that?
I was still, I didn't stop.
Yeah.
Like I must have been. It's hard, I can't really, it's tough for me to remember.
Because it's interesting, we have a lot of gymnasts that come on, but we have a lot of people from different sports, and you know, you're now essentially a professional athlete in jiu-jitsu, but you're starting at 21, which is that's very different, right? Most of the time we're getting people coming on that start 7 years old, 8 years old, even 5 years old. There's kids, but you're starting at that age. So there must have been something about the sport when you first came into it that really got you hooked to have that motivation to have the surgery with the idea so that I can then come back and do MMA, you know?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because it was never something I thought of. I never even thought of it going to be a career. I just enjoyed it. I just really liked it. I actually wanted to fight MMA initially. And then, so I had my surgery anyway. And Paul, he's the nicest guy ever as well, not only my coach, but he's a very good friend of mine. Like back then, I didn't really know him that much, just enough. Like, see him around the gym. He taught the classes. He let me use the weights part of the gym for free for like 6 months.
Oh wow!
Just so I could do my rehab.
Yeah.
And I remember other people saying they used to see me in the gym, just thinking, "Who's he? Just lifting weights?" and I used to say to people, "Yeah. Afterwards, I'll be on the mats. And they're like, "Yeah, whatever." And then after the surgery, they gave me the okay. Boom, straight back into it. But I didn't do MMA. I just started with jiu-jitsu. And then did that like 3 times a week for a couple of months. And then I remember the September of that year, I started training 5-6 times a week.
Right.
And it's been just like that ever since.
What is
just jiu-jitsu?
What's
really.
the typical origin story for somebody that does jiu-jitsu in the UK, Shane? Because it seems niche to me from the outside coming in. And when I started gymnastics, it was very similar. It was very amateur. The senior guys that were competing for Great Britain on the world stage, they didn't get paid, so they had full-time jobs, most of those guys. So it wasn't like there was a clear career path in the sport. But we were starting as young kids. And the origin story, well, we've had a chat before we went live. Shane's got ADHD, and I was diagnosed last year with ADHD too. It's typically the most wild kids in a class will end up in gymnastics, and that's who the gymnastic coaches look for.
Yeah.
What is the typical origin story of someone that will get into jiu-jitsu quite seriously like you in the UK? Because, you know, obviously it's a growing sport. It's not well established. It kind of is now, but it wasn't certainly when you started, I imagine. So what is that typical story? Somebody that's maybe watched the UFC or seen it on TV, wants to, is it that?
For the most part, I think. For me personally, I think when I was like 12, 13 maybe, I watched Enter the Dragon of Bruce Lee, and I loved it. And like Bruce Lee did his own martial art called Jeet Kune Do, which for all intents and purposes is not it's not jiu-jitsu. It's just like a striking based martial art that wouldn't be very effective in the UFC. Let's put it like that. But anyway, I'd watched the films. I was really interested in that. So I tried to find classes in that when I was like 13, 14. And I did find a couple here and there. And then I just stumbled across the UFC and started watching a little bit here and there. And I thought, oh, you know what? Like, I like the look of this. And I ended up doing like 1 or 2 of these Jeet Kune Do classes at a gym in town before I went to Nottingham MMA. And I saw that they did a bit of MMA and Jiu-Jitsu there as well. So technically, I think when I was like 19, I did 1 Jiu-Jitsu session. Right. I think it's more MMA based. But anyway, I did that. I was like, that was cool. But I also remembering getting my ass handed to me by someone. I can't even remember his name. And I fucking hated that. Like, it was horrible. It was one of the worst experiences ever. I remember just fucking took my back and like drove his hips into me, and my face was flat on the floor, and I remember getting choked and tapping. I was like, that was shit. Like, I remember how shit that was. And then that gym closed down. Like, there was a dodgy owner. Like, he just took the money, went bankrupt, whatever, and boom, gone. But I still like knew some of the people, so I ended up just doing a little bit of boxing at another gym, and then I didn't do that for that long. And then one of the lads bumped into him just randomly and went, "Oh, what are you up to?" Blah, blah. It's like, "Where are you training now?" And I was like, just lifting weights at the time. And he was like, "Oh, we now train at Nottingham MMA." I was like, oh, sound, okay. He's like, why don't you come down? So I did.
Yeah, and that was it.
Yeah, funnily enough, I remember Paul and then Carsten, another guy who trained there, who was a pro MMA fighter. He was actually on the Ultimate Fighter as well. But he was also a tattoo artist, so that's how I knew him initially.
Right.
And he did actually teach that one grappling MMA class I did back when I was 19. And I walked in and they were talking about me. Like, just as, he said he's going to come down. And I just walked through the door, just got my little taxi, because I didn't even know where it was. So I just put the address in and I was like, right, taxi driver, this is where we're going. And then, and then that was it. But that was the same day that I stepped back and my knee collapsed.
Yeah, you did your knee. So a lot happened at that. It was quite a pivotal point in your life, I guess, at that point.
Yeah.
When you walked into the gym for not the first time, but probably that session, Shane, going into Nottingham MMA and you meet Paul and all of this happens. When you look back now, what physical characteristics and maybe the mental side of things as well, did you walk into the gym and you look back and go, oh, that was a real strength going in and that helped me with my jiu-jitsu? And what were maybe some of the disadvantages or weaknesses that you went into jiu-jitsu with?
So I never, for me, I never struggled. Like, it sounds kind of like, I don't know, not cocky, but it just is what it is. Yeah. I walked for the gym. I didn't even think to myself, I'm just nervous or scared. Like a lot of people get like that, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that, of course. It's just each individual's personality. But for me, I just went in. I was like, cool, let's go. Like, I just went in, just did it, because I wanted to. And I felt I was always a relatively confident person.
Okay.
And yeah, I just went in. Like,
do you think it helped? Do you think it helped playing rugby growing up because it's a contact sport, and maybe football's a bit different, right?
Yeah.
Rugby is. We've had rugby players on the podcast as well. They're a different type of people, and it's a different kind of a sport. And that confrontation. Because for me, when I started, I don't like confrontation. So whenever I'd be in town and like a fight would break out, or even watching my brother play football and he'd get into something, my legs would go weak and I'd get all nervous. And then so I was like, I think I'm more dangerous because I've got no idea I think I'm unpredictable. Yeah. So I was like, I need to learn that I'd be okay to maybe, and again, I told you about having a son. I was like, I want to know if something happens, at least I can look after him in some way, shape or form. Because at the minute, I'm like a loose cannon. And so that was why I went in. But maybe, like you said, you go in with that background in rugby and you're used to that.
Definitely.
Butting of heads.
Yeah, I think that helps massively because I do think just the first few steps of doing jiu-jitsu are hard for someone if they've never touched another person. And that sounds weird, but if you're not used to being close to someone, having that kind of physical contact, and I don't just mean having a girlfriend and hugging your girlfriend or whatever, but with your mates, just grabbing each other and I don't know,
play fighting. Not everybody does that, right?
I never play fighted when I was younger, but I think because I played rugby, I was just used to being knocked about. Yeah, it just is what it is. I never even second guessed it, and I think because of that, it probably made a difference. And I was always very relatively strong and athletic. I always have been in my whole life. I've always been one of the kid who did everything. I was good at long jump. I was good at sprinting. I did all these different sports as a kid. Always did the athletics and for county and whatever. So I think because of that, then it then gave me an extra kind of advantage. But also on the flip side, mentally because I know I've got ADHD. I think I just learn. I can pick anything I want to get good at. I can do. Pretty much and it's always been that way, but it's been wanting to get good at it for more than 3 weeks. And I just happened to enjoy jiu-jitsu so much that I was able to just keep doing it. And yeah, I just think
that passion from the beginning. Do you think,
it's hard to even pinpoint, to be fair.
If I was to have a chat with Paul and I said, look, Paul, when Shane started, was there anything that you saw in him in terms of his mindset that maybe set him apart from all the other people that start every January at jiu-jitsu and then give up after 4 weeks? But he continued to keep coming. Do you think there would have been something he would, would you say that growing up you were somebody that's very hardworking, quite determined?
I don't know.
Because it's interesting, right, to put
yourself
to put yourself in that position, right, where you're going to go and essentially fight against another human being. You have to be wired in a certain way, potentially.
I just enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was just that passion.
Why? Yeah. I think when I was a kid, I did. Sometimes I got in fights at school and stuff, and I always was sure of myself, and I didn't mind. I don't mind confrontation too much. Even more so now, actually. I don't mind. If it happens, it happens. Mostly the face tattoos and the cauliflower ear will put someone off. But yeah, I've actually asked Paul these questions before.
Right,
Like,
okay.
what did you think? And like, he never really gives me an answer though. He's not one for like complimenting you directly. But I know just from things he's said to me before, like, and off cuff, that he knew that I was gonna be kind of good. Because like he says, yeah, I was kind of like him. Like people didn't want to train with him after a while because he would beat them up. And he was telling me that, and I don't remember this, but I'm sure it happened. He said he took me into his office once to talk to me. He's like, right, you're gonna have to chill a little bit because no one wants to roll with you because you're too good. like not too good, just like I was giving people a hard time.
Okay.
Like people that were training for a lot longer than me.
Yeah.
And maybe I was just a little bit too excited.
Yeah.
And like,
I've had that a few times.
Yeah.
Not because I'm good. I think because I'm too high
Yeah.
energy. I think that's because I'm in fight or flight mode.
yeah, and
panicking.
I think maybe like it was kind of like that. I wasn't panicking, but I just wanted to win.
Yeah.
Like I'm quite a competitive person. I don't particularly like losing. So I think because of that as well, and I was always quite strong and athletic, that I was able to just pick things up really quickly and then just do it. And it made, and then Paul, I remember Paul pointing out to me, or saying that you told me that I had to chill a little bit because people didn't want to train with me. But it was like, but he likened it to himself.
Okay.
So I think from that kind of says how he probably felt about me.
How was your life set up at that point, Shane, after you've had that surgery and you go on, you're training 3 times a week, then maybe 5 times a week, you're in your early 20s. How are you funding that? How is that working at that stage? Because you've just started, so you're not a professional yet.
No.
You kind of,
Far from
I'm
it.
sure you're starting to think, maybe one day I could be. How are you balancing all of that?
Do you know what? I didn't even ever think about it, really. I didn't really think about, oh, maybe I'll be a professional one day or something like that. That wasn't something that crossed my mind initially. But I did have a job. I just worked, I think at that point, because I didn't finish college. Well, after I didn't finish college because of my knee, I then went on to do an apprenticeship, and I did web and graphic design. And again, I didn't end up finishing it because I didn't do my coursework, obviously, which again, in turn, ADHD and finding out I had that was like, oh yeah, no wonder I didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I did that. I finished the course, but I didn't complete the course, if that makes sense. So I had the job for a while, but then they couldn't keep me on because I didn't finish it. I couldn't go there. And then I ended up working in a call centre, just doing telesales, which was shit.
How was that with the ADHD? Did you enjoy the actual talking to people because you were doing something? Or
So again, this is funny. I was good at it when I was in the mood. Like I could go in there and for the first few weeks I was making loads of sales and I was like, oh, this is easy. And then afterwards I got a bit bored of it, but I kept with it. And I stuck with it for ages. And then sometimes I'd just do it and I could do it. But I'd really have to force myself to do it. Like there used to be something like they'd do what you call a go-home target. So if you hit this amount of sales, no matter what time it is of the day, you just go home and you should get paid for the rest of the day and you get your bonus. So if that was on, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I can do this. And I'd just go home early. I remember getting in at like 9 and going home by 10 once because I wanted to, sort of thing. So I just did that. I worked there. I even remember I was a white belt still, telling people about it at work and like saying, oh, I've got a competition, I'm going to win it and all this, that and the other. I was always confident I was going to win it. Like, even when I was a white belt, I was still getting the better of blue belts and stuff. I remember submitting a purple belt when I was a white belt as well once. Like, I remember telling one of the guys at work, and he's like, oh, how did you get on? I was like, oh, I won one, lost one. And I remember him like kind of almost talking shit about it a little bit. And I remember being a bit annoyed. Right. Of like, and then I sometimes look back on that now compared to then, because I do remember that guy specifically, and he now actually knows almost like how much I've accomplished. It's kind of like, okay, that's fair. But yeah, I worked there, and then I just had this shit job for ages, and I just used to go training after work every day.
When do you feel that you became a professional, Shane? Like, is there a moment that you felt like you were? It sounds like you were training as if you were one. without wanting to be one, but there must have been a
Yeah.
point in time where it maybe switched a little bit. And
So I think when I class myself as a professional is when I quit my job. So to start with, I worked in telesales for them. Then I applied for another job within the company to do recruitment, which funnily enough, I did fucking nothing. But I did that for like a year and got paid to just watch Joe Rogan and UFC videos on my computer in my little office as well, which was quite cool. And then I had another job. I went and actually worked for Hillary's Blinds. And then I got a promotion within the company again, and then worked in IT for Hillary's Blinds. And that was quite chill. That was easy. I was, I think, a purple belt at this time.
Okay.
So, like, I'd already been competing quite a lot, kind of winning competitions and such. And I think when I was a purple belt, that was probably when I had having the idea of wanting to do it full time. So I'd start to teach classes occasionally, do one-to-ones, have a few sponsors and stuff. Back then, it was just like free gear, though. It wasn't like money or anything like that. And then, come lockdown. So lockdown happened. I was on furlough for like 6 months, shall we say. And then we almost had to go back into the office. Then it kind of got re-locked down again. And I worked from home for 6 months. And then by the time it came back to coming into the office, I was still a purple belt. I remember thinking, I can't do this. I can't go back into that office. Because I was teaching a couple of one-to-ones here and there throughout my day in general, when we were allowed to kind of do that again. And my girlfriend, Becca, we were talking, and I saw a job come up to work as just like a fitness instructor, because I've got my qualifications for all that anyway. So she was like, look, quit Hillary's, like, do some one-to-ones, work this job, and don't worry, like, if you struggle to pay rent, I'll sort you. I'll cover it, sort of thing. Which I think gave me the freedom to do that, to then not worry. Because I think it was just worrying about money would have been the problem. And like in my past, I was shit with money, which again is a ADHD trait. So I think I was worried that I wouldn't have the money to do it. But because Becca said that to me, it was kind of like, okay, this is my opportunity. And then she supported me through that. And quite nicely, touch wood, I've never had to rely on her to pay rent. So even from that point, I was able to do it. And then for a couple of months, I worked this job at a gym called H3 before it closed. And then got fired because I didn't want to teach Jiu-Jitsu there, when it was literally just around the corner from Nottingham MMA. Obviously, I'm not going to become a competitor for my own gym. And they fired me. They were like, they fired me, as well as actually I was off sick with COVID at the time. They rang me and told me I was fired. I was like, oh, great, thank you. So there I just decided to try and push the Jiu-Jitsu more, push the one-to-ones. I think that's when technically I guess I became professional, because I get paid to do Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. I did. And I started off just teaching one-to-ones. And actually, tell her, like, 1 day a week for like, I think it was probably like September, October, November, December. I helped one of our other black belts, actually. He's a painter decorator. I'd just do labour work for him one day a week. He'd pick me up. I'd come and sand some walls down for him or whatever, and he'd pay me cash, and that'd like sort me out for, I don't know, food for the week. It was just helped a little bit. And then I got a job working for Nottingham Trent Uni, teaching Jiu-Jitsu. Wow. So from there, I ended up just teaching my one-to-ones at the university, and then I think I started doing a few classes there as well, and I got my brown belt kind of like at the start of me quitting Hillary's. Yeah. And I think that's when it kind of became professional, in my opinion, because I'm doing Jiu-Jitsu full time. Yeah. And from there on, a few months later, from starting at the uni, I got my black belt. And then that's really when I think I started competing. People knew who I was, but then I started doing the bigger shows, getting bigger wins and stuff. And then that's when I jumped into that whole goth lord niche and whatnot. And my name became more well known. And from there on, I think that's when I became a professional, I'd say. So like, I've been doing jiu-jitsu full time for probably 4 years in May, June time, I'd say.
And what does that look like, Shane? Like, what does your week look like as a full-time jiu-jitsu athlete? What does that, for people that are listening, because we have people from all different types of sports that listen to the podcast. A lot of them, like we said, the big base is gymnastics, but they're interested in all different body weight type sports.
Yeah.
So we have climbers on, got a snowboarder coming on, divers.
Nice.
So a real interesting mix of people, and everyone's
Yeah.
interested. What does your day look like as a jiu-jitsu athlete? What does it look like for
So-
you? What would your week look like?
I'll start Monday to Sunday. So Monday, there's a couple of sessions I'll teach lunchtimes, as you know, because you come to them.
Yeah.
So other Monday morning, like my girlfriend Becca, she's a tattoo artist, so she doesn't have to get up too early either. So we both get up at the same time, roughly around 8 a.m. We'll get ready for work together. She'll either walk to work or I'll drop her off, and I'll come to the gym. I'll do actually technically she's off on a Monday, so if she's not working, if she's as long as she's off work, we'll go to the gym together.
Mm-hmm.
I'll teach a couple of one-to-ones in the morning. I'll then teach the lunchtime class.
Yep.
And as long as I'm not injured, I also train at that lunchtime class as well. And then we'll go home, we'll have foods, have a nap, whatever. We'll come back in the evening. As Becca also trains with me too.
Okay.
And then...
And are you using those classes that you're teaching throughout a day, mate? Are you using those as an opportunity to train yourself as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I always take every opportunity. And like I said to you before about learning from people of different levels, even if the class isn't full of black belts, doesn't matter. I can still work on things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll still find the best opportunity for me to improve on that day. Like I also have a coach that tells me what I need to be doing each day, each session. So I'll just focus on that and I'll do that. And it doesn't matter who it's on, I'll just keep repping that out sort of thing.
Right.
Or I'll maybe, if I haven't got like a plan for that week or something, I'll just use someone to practice something on that I fancy kind of learning.
Yeah.
Or then if I need to work on something I'm not as good at, then do it like that. So yeah, I try and take every opportunity I can to train.
And is that 6 days a week, 7 days a week, 5 days a week?
So I think for me, just depends on what I'm doing that week to how much I'm going to train. Like I train generally most days and have at least one day off a week.
Yeah.
So like I'll train on Monday and on a Tuesday I'll teach one-to-ones again, and then I'll lift some weights, and then I'll sometimes train at lunch depending on like time. But then in the Tuesday evening I'll go and train again. Then on a Wednesday I'll do some training in the mornings, sometimes one-to-ones. I teach at the uni as well. So that's mostly what my day consists of. Yeah. Teaching one-to-ones, teaching at the uni, or teaching classes at the gym, and then training.
Is the weight something you've always used, Shane, to supplement your training? Was it something you picked up after the surgery when you did the weights for the rehab? Is that a typical part of a jiu-jitsu athlete's like training schedule?
It should be, if it's not.
Yeah.
Like I've always I think the first time I went into a gym, I was like 11. I remember being at school and my mum said to me, if you do Lent, like 40 days without chocolate it was for me. She's like, if you do this, like at the end of it, I'll buy you a gym membership. I don't know what a 10, 11-year-old wants a gym membership, but I was like, yeah, okay. So my mum bought me this gym membership after me not eating sweets or chocolate for like 40 days.
Right.
It was like a well-done present or something.
Was that for a reason? Like, were you an overweight kid?
No,
or anything?
No, I was always athletic and fit. My gran used to give me a lot. My grandparents, they used to give me a lot of whatever I wanted, sweets and chocolate-wise.
Okay.
Like every Thursday,
Yeah.
I'd have loads of sweets and chocolate. My granddad used to send me home with loads. Like, I am surprised I was not fat. But I think because I was so active, I was never glued to the TV or game consoles. I played them a little bit, but yeah, I was always out, whether on my bike, whether it was skating, whether it was just climbing trees, jumping over fucking lake, like little rivers or whatever, streams. Like, yeah, me and my friends used to just go out and just do shit, like you do as a kid, I suppose. Not so much now, I think it's a bit different. But yeah, my mum did that out, and I lifted weights pretty consistently for like 6 to 12 months as a kid. And then I did stop. But I think that gave me a good base of just being kind of strong.
Yeah.
Like, I've always been strong anyway. I remember my mum always tells me a story of I tried to stand up when I was a week old.
Wow.
So I think I've always had strong legs. So and I think like, it's probably just from that maybe
Yeah,
alone.
yeah.
But I always remember her telling me that. And I walked quite early as well, like 8 or 9 months or
Wow.
something. And then at school, I was always into sport and stuff. And then eventually, like, I come towards my kind of like my adolescent years of being like 15, 16 and so on, if that's the right term. I just started going to the gym a little bit and then bitting and bobbing there. And then when I moved to Nottingham eventually, because I'm from Melton Mowbray,
Okay.
I tried to consistently stick with the gym. And I did like that 3 or 4 times a week before I did jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of stuck with it.
And is that, that training that you're doing with weights, Shane, is that specific for jiu-jitsu? Is it general? Because when I would train with an S&C coach that was based with the GB gymnastics team, a lot of it was very specific for what we were doing.
Yeah.
Is it the same for you as well?
It wasn't, but now it is.
Okay.
Because I have a strength and conditioning coach who sponsors me called Andrew Hardwick, Brotherhood Health and Performance. And he knows his stuff. He trains jiu-jitsu as well. He's a brown belt. He's been training longer than I ever think. Or if not, just as long. But he knows his stuff. He's so smart. He's constantly researching everything. Like, he's a very, very good strength and conditioning coach. And even just a good jiu-jitsu coach, full stop. But I've been working with Andrew since I was a purple belt. So, gosh, it's been... probably working with Andrew for 5 or 6 years, maybe.
Okay, right.
So he's been my coach all that time. I remember initially, actually, I paid for like a little monthly thing that he'd send out, but now then he offered to sponsor me. I was actually meant to fight MMA, and I was speaking to him. He was like, okay, I'll just sponsor you for it, and we'll just do this. He did my diet for me, and then he did my strength and conditioning, and then the MMA fight fell through because of lockdown. And I've just stuck with him since. Yeah, so it is all very specific.
Okay.
Like, I'll kind of tell him what it is what I want to kind of get out of this particular block, and he'll put it together to fit jiu-jitsu.
What are the type of things that you were doing? For someone that maybe goes to the gym, you're deadlifting, you're benching, what are you doing pistol squats? Is it explosive stuff, plyometrics?
So generally, just different now because I'm rehabbing and I'm working different things. But prior, like I did generally work out as 2 full body sessions. So like I do on the same day, maybe like a bench and a squat, and then another day, and then have a lot of little accessory work. Sometimes there'll be some plyometrics involved. Sometimes it'll be more explosive. Sometimes it'll be just strength based. Just depends what I've got coming up. I suppose. Like if it's like a camp, for instance, then it will be more, I guess, kind of lower rep, but kind of a higher weight explosive stuff. If it's just like a training block to help me get a bit more robust, stronger, then it'll obviously be based towards putting a little bit of size and strength on. It just very much depends on kind of like what I'm doing around that time, jiu-jitsu wise.
And do you keep that up all the way throughout to maybe the week of competing? Are you still lifting weights? Because
I compete like generally quite regularly, I can afford to still train the week off.
Right.
If I competed once every few months, then I'd probably take the week off.
Right.
But because I try to compete once or twice a month, as a rule, it doesn't matter if I train up to that because my body's used to it.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense to keep at least doing normal stuff. I'll probably do it earlier in the week, or maybe do 1 session opposed to 2, but I'll still try and keep it up.
In terms of you spoke about that your nutrition is good, you don't really drink much, you're quite into recovery. How important is that when you put the whole package together? Is that something you've picked up? Have you made mistakes before being younger and maybe not looking after yourself in that way? Have you always been that way?
I've always been that way inclined, I suppose, but not as much as it is now. So I do also have a separate nutritionist too, who sponsors me, BJJ Nutrition. And Jay's been looking after me now for maybe a year and 2 years, maybe almost a year and a half. I think, funnily enough, I did his podcast. Okay. And then after the podcast, because we got on so well, he messaged me and he was like, "Oh, we was wondering if we could sponsor you."
Yeah.
So he sponsors me.
Oh, brilliant.
And he does all my nutrition for me. And I've always been one to make sure I eat properly. Generally, like. I tend to, if it was just myself, I'd follow like an 80-20 diet. So like 80% good, 20% bad. Yeah. Which I think makes sense because I need to make, with jiu-jitsu specifically, because it's because it's such a high energy sport. You need to be having a lot of calories for the most part, like especially but also to make sure you're doing it properly, so you're in the right weight classes and stuff. Like to start with, me and Jay, we tried to get me to 90, like 92 kilo, and I got there, had a match at that weight, and then I was like, I just didn't feel right. I didn't feel it was good. Like I was still relatively lean, considering I'd never been that heavy in my life. And then we started dropping my weight back down again. And then I was competing at 80, 77 kilos, that is. And then found out that I was probably better off at a lower weight, which I'm very happy that I'm lower weight again.
Is that what you fight at now?
Yeah. If it's day before, I'll do 77. If it's day of weigh-ins, I will do between 80 and 83-ish, 84 maybe, if depending on the opponent or the competition.
Wow, so that's a big shift, right? So 77 the day before, but 84 the day after.
Yeah, generally.
Wow, that's almost a stone, no?
Yeah, I guess so. Like so.
I guess for someone from a sport that's normal for you, but for someone from like gymnastics, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, so like...
It feels like I'm trying to imagine myself on the rings with 7 kilos extra on top of me.
Yeah, which you don't really want, do you? No, so like, I guess it's just like a boxer's cut or a weight or an MMA fighter's cut, just a little bit less extreme. If I'm weighing in for the day before, and so sometimes you'll do a day before weigh-in, and sometimes you'll do a day of weigh-in, just depending on the promotion. Like, the bigger the event, generally, you weigh in the day before, because there's like professional athletes. Yeah. And then you can be in the correct weight class, whatever, because you want to be generally the biggest for your weight class. So like, I'll do a water load the week of, and then I'll cut weight in the sauna. So for main character, for example, I cut down to 77 in the sauna the day before. The next day I was like 82 kilos. Okay. So I put on 5 kilo since the weigh-in. But that same day I was still like, before I cut weight, so I only maybe did 2 or 3 in the sauna, and then put it all back on by rehydrating and stuff. Yeah. So it's not like it's a calorie deficit. Yeah. So I'm still got the energy I need when I'm cutting weight. It's just a bit of dehydration, which is not the best thing in the world, but it's fine if it's like over 24 hours later than you're competing, which it was for me.
How are you looking after your body, Shane, when you're doing that? Because I've seen those sessions, and it's very different what I'm doing. I'm very much a beginner. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, but I walk out and I feel fucked. Yeah. So how are you recovering, considering the fact that you're training 6 days a week, let's say on average, and you're trying to compete twice a week, because a competition is
twice a month, not
twice a
week.
Sorry, twice a month. Wow. That's a completely different. Competing is completely different, right? You can't really replicate a competition in a training environment. You can do your best, but the intensity, the emotions, the mental energy you're spending once you're standing in front of somebody, like, what are you doing to make sure that you're looking after your body so you've got that longevity to be able to compete consistently over a long period of time?
So I think training smart is a big one. Like, I barely get injured. Like, this is the first time I've properly got injured, I think, doing, like, in a competition, I've never been injured pretty much. Like, not enough to put me out of training. You take little niggles here and there, which mean you might take a couple of days off or something. Okay. Or you might have to just be careful. But like, this is the first time that I haven't actually been able to walk for a few days after a competition or whatever. So strength and conditioning is a big part of it. Like, if your body isn't robust enough, you are going to get injured more. It just is what it is. And I'm sure that's probably the same with gymnastics. Yeah. If you're not up to par with strength and conditioning, then it's going to affect your training and your recovery, because you might get injured more because your muscles won't be strong here, there, and everywhere. Yeah. And then obviously diet as well. You want to make sure that I've got the correct amount of nutrients, like protein, carbs, fats, and so on, and like even just electrolytes, things like that. Just little things to give you that edge. Ensuring I'm sleeping enough. Yeah. Like, I've got the right supplements. I really have to focus on my diet, because I don't eat meat. I don't eat any animal products at all. Wow. So I've been vegan for like 5 years almost. And I just make sure that I just do it properly. Like, I take the correct supplements I'm supposed to, but I probably get more protein than people that do eat meat, just because I know what I'm doing, like, and I'm focusing on it. Yeah.
That's interesting because we saw a trend of lots of athletes going vegan probably around 4 or 5 years ago. And what seemed to happen with a lot of them was that they had this like initial phase of quite a positive response, and then they almost reached a point of diminishing returns and then went back and started eating meat again. But you've been able to do that for 5 years and you're doing very intense exercise. Has the secret to that been working with somebody that also knows what they're doing and can help you out with getting enough protein in your diet? Because I sometimes find it hard to get enough protein in my diet, and I eat meat.
Yeah. I think it's more just me, because like my nutritionist is not vegan. Like he doesn't like give me my meal plans. He tells me how many calories I need, how many carbs, how much protein. I do the rest myself.
Okay,
so I meal plan myself. Right. I think because it's my job, I just make a point of just doing it. Like I make a point of making sure I hit my protein targets, and my carbs and so on. And like I've worked out when's the best time for me to eat before training and so on. Like funnily enough, since being vegan, I've been able to eat closer to training, because before I'd eat something with an animal product in and it'd just sit on my stomach and I'd feel shit in training. Yeah. But now I can eat closer. I mean, like obviously you could do that too if you just ate something that was just oats or whatever. It didn't have any animal products in it. Yeah. But I just noticed that it just happened that I can do that now and still be able to train quite consistently, despite that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, mate, because straight away I'd be like, how would I even get that much protein in? Because one thing I noticed towards the end of my career was that I was getting a lot of muscle injuries, but I'd never put two and two together until I retired. And I trained with one of my friends in the gym, and I said, Josh, I want to get to 70 kilos. I've never been at 70 kilos. I want to train in the gym. And we trained for a year, and he was like, yeah, you need 1.5 times the amount of protein to your body weight. I just never knew that. I'm a professional athlete, been to the Olympics, right? Just simple things like that. I didn't know that. And then I looked back in hindsight and went, that's why I was getting so many muscle tears. There just wasn't enough protein in my diet. So all of the injuries, I tore my hamstring, my bicep, my rotator cuff twice, all in the space of like 3 or 4 years. And it's obvious now, looking back in hindsight. So it's impressive you've been able to do that, mate. And you're able to, and that's probably something that's quite good for people that are listening that maybe are vegans and do sport. That's a really positive thing to hear from someone that's competing at a very high level in a sport that's very intense as well, you know?
I feel like as well. I think a lot of it is just because I track it. Okay. Like I use my MyFitnessPal, like just to track all my calories. And because I've been doing it for so long as well, I can roughly work out things as well. Like, I know this is this and whatnot. But yeah, I think just because I can track it, and because I do track it, that helps me make sure I get it. Like I get the amount of protein I need. And yeah, it's just as simple as that, really. Yeah. There's nothing hard about it. It's just doing it and knowing.
And being consistent with it.
Yeah, exactly. And like I do take supplements as well, just in case. Like I think I can, because of how good my diet generally is, I think I wouldn't need supplements, but I just do it just to cover all bases.
Mm-hmm. When you're approaching a fight with somebody, Shane, how early do you know who you're fighting? And also, when you approach that fight, are you thinking more about what you can do to them or what they could do to you? And does that change depending on their ability level?
So, to answer your first question of when it comes up, how early in advance do I know? It depends. So if I'm just signing up for like a tournament, which would just be like for example, black belt, my weight class, you just sign up, you pay. If you're a black belt, you can do it. Cool, simple. You'll find out the week of when they put the brackets together. You'll know who's in your division generally, because when you sign up, you can see who else has signed up. That also kind of gives you more of an incentive sometimes. Think, oh, hey, he signed up, I want to beat him. So you know who's in your division. And then maybe 2, 3, 4 days before, the brackets will get released. So you know what time you're on, you know what mat you're on, you know who you've got first, who you could have second, third, fourth, and so on.
And that's like a round robin type thing. Like I'm thinking of Karate Kid. Like you've got to go through the rounds and
less of a round robin, but more of a knockout tournament. Yeah. So sometimes it's round robin though. Yeah. There are some competitions where it is a round robin, which is quite nice. Especially because the higher level you get, the less people generally there are. So it's cool to have a round robin. Like for example, there's a competition called Grappling Industries, that is round robin. And I did one back in June or July. I had no one in my division. And because I'm a black belt, they let you do it for free, which is quite cool. But I had no one in my division. I was posting on these forums saying, does anyone want to sign up? I want to compete. And I eventually got someone. It's one person, but you do a best of 3. So, you got more than one match regardless,
right, okay.
which is always nice. Hence, round robin sort of thing. So, yeah, I won my first 2 matches. So, boom, I won the best of 3. But then some competitions you'll have where it will just be a knockout tournament. So there'll be a bracket of X amount of people. So say if 8 people sign up, you have 3 matches, but you only fight the people who win. So I fight this guy, I win, he goes home. Yeah. Next person, I fight the next person who won their first match, and so on and so forth. And then you fight, so you know who you could have, but you generally find out only your first opponent to start with, for definite, a couple of days before. But then, when it comes to super fights, we'll call it, or matches on shows and stuff, the promotion will approach you maybe a couple of months in advance, and they'll go, would you like to be on our show? Yes. What weight are you? Da-da-da-da-da. Would you like to fight this person? Cool, yeah, sound. Sign, seal. And then you know who you've got. Mm-hmm. So then that's when you have time to focus on them and their skill sets. So for me, this is something that it's taken a while to become what I would feel like a professional. These past 6 months have been when I've really been putting in the effort. My nutrition's absolutely on point. My strength and conditioning, I'm actually doing it properly. I'd go through phases where I'd do it for a few weeks and then I'd drop off a week. Maybe end up doing 1 session 1 week, none the next week, 2 the week after. Been a bit hit and miss with it, but I've been really consistent with that recently. And then also I approached someone that I already knew, but an Australian guy called Jake O'Driscoll, who is he's a black belt. Funnily enough, I've actually competed against him and I actually have beaten him. But sometimes being the best athlete doesn't make you the best coach and vice versa. So he's actually a coach as well. So yes, I do have Paul at the gym who does a lot of my coaching, but Jake, I reached out to him because he coached a lady called Adele Fornerino to win double gold at ADCC, which in Jiu-Jitsu is the biggest thing you can do. And it was her first time going to ADCC, and she won double gold, so that's her weight division, and then the absolute, which is open weight, so it could be any size person. Wow. And she managed to win double gold there on her first time out, which is unseen, unheard of. And he coached her through it. So I reached out to him to do essentially remote coaching for me. So he would give me, so we knew who my opponent was, for example. So Max Hansen was the guy I was going to fight. Jake researched him. He looked into all of his matches. He looked into his reactions, what he does well, what he doesn't do well. So for these past 8 weeks before my match, I was doing things that he was telling me to do. So I could work essentially the game to beat him. Mm-hmm. And which is where I feel like I became more professional, because I was looking for that extra kind of help, I suppose, so to speak, in what I should and shouldn't be doing. Before, I would just wing it. I'd just do jiu-jitsu. I'd do it because I enjoyed it and it would be fun, and I'd just do what I wanted. Mm-hmm. I never really focused on specifics for a specific person until Jake came along and told me this is kind of how he's been doing it. Obviously, there's different ways different people are going to learn and different coaches are going to teach, but the way he did it worked really well for me. Yeah. So I didn't have to think about anything. Yeah. I just look at my phone and go, right, today I'm doing this. Simple as that. Tomorrow I'm doing this. I would then video all of my footage and I'd send it to him. Wow. So at the end of the week, he'd watch it and he'd go, right, okay, just do this next or whatever. So and then we're layering it each week. I'm layering the techniques to get to that point that I need to beat that person. Most of the time before that, like I said, I was wing it. I just look in and go, all right, he's good at that, I'll try and avoid that. Or I'd look at, all right, I'll probably try and do this. But because he then looks at me and goes, right, this is the game plan. Do this, 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 and this. And if you follow that game plan, you win. That sort of thing. So I've been doing that, and I've been like working with him. It's been fantastic. It's just a shame that I wasn't able to show it.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I know how much better I've got in that time, so it wasn't a waste. So when I'm back after injury, I'll be doing the same thing again.
What do you think's been that catalyst for that slight mind shift then to like do it properly and take it seriously? Is it because you've got ambitions of maybe competing at a higher level or getting to the highest level, and maybe you've got to that point where you're like, right, I either go for it now or I don't?
So, like, I know how good I am in the gym. Like, I can hang with the best guys in the world. I know I can because I have, and I've submitted these best guys. They have also submitted me, but that's training. But like, I know the level that I'm at. It's just being able to implement it in training, in competition. Like, it's a mental thing as well. But having spoken to Jake, like he says he believes that I've got the potential to be one of the best. So he said he's good at making good people better. And I think actually having someone to steer me in the right direction will help me mentally as well as physically. So I think it was just because I had this big match coming up that I was like, right, I know how good I am, but I need to make sure I can show it. Like, so I can then take that next step forward. Like, beating Max was going to be massive for my career. And then I was just kind of scrolling for Instagram, and I just kept seeing his stuff pop up because, like, I follow him, he follows me, and like I'm friends with him anyway. And I thought, you know what, I was going to ask him what he does. Yeah. And then we spoke about it, and he was like, and I was like, I was kind of interested in doing this. And like, he sorted me out because we're friends anyway, and I did pay him, and it was just worth it. Like, the first match that I had when I was started working with him, we weren't specifically training for that opponent, but like he told me what to do in that match. Like, he'd write, this is your game plan, do this. I did exactly what he said, and I won in like a minute or two. Right. Like, I think it was about a minute 15 or something. Yeah. And it was just like, okay, cool, easy.
Yeah, it was really interesting. When I got towards the end of my career, I'd been with my coach my whole life, pretty much, from the age of, I met him when I was 8. Oh, wow. He coached me till I was 28, so we were best friends. He was a Russian guy, so his English isn't the best. But we almost didn't need to speak to communicate. Yeah. And for a long time in my career, because I went for a few challenges, I kind of felt like nobody's ever going to care about this as much as me. Yeah. So I need to control everything. And like handing that back over to him, when I was felt like a scary thing to do. I can imagine. But it was so freeing when I went, Sergey, you just tell me what to do. Yeah. I'm going to turn up as a beginner again, and I'll do whatever you say. I'm not going to let my ego get in the way. Just tell me, I'll go for it. Yeah. And I think as a professional athlete, if you can learn to do that quicker, it's very, very helpful because it frees your mind to do what you need to do. And it sounds like you've done a great job of getting a great little support team around you and treating yourself almost like an F1 car, right? And you've got a pit stop team that are going to help you.
Like nutrition, like strength and conditioning, coaching, like training partners, like everything. And I think like you say, just putting that ego aside, giving Jake kind of free reign of what I'm doing, and then realizing, like, it took a long time. I knew this anyway, but it's sometimes hard to implement it, is that it doesn't matter if you lose in training. You're losing in training for a reason. Like, I'm going to training and, like, you know, in Jiu-Jitsu, when you spar with someone or you submit someone, it's like, oh, cool. Oh, my God, I tapped a black belt. It's like, in the gym, it doesn't matter. Like, obviously, when you go to someone who is also of a similar level and you're both like, right, we're going to train hard. Yeah. You can know what level you're at, but then you also need to focus on like your weaknesses as well in the gym. So if you are practicing something and you get submitted by someone or caught, swept, scored on or whatever, don't let that get to you. Yeah. And now that is something that a lot of people struggle with. And I think I definitely did, because I never wanted to get beaten in the gym. Like, I am competitive. And like losing in the gym for me, I'd go home thinking about it a little bit. It didn't often happen either, which I guess made it worse. But then getting to black belt, it kind of made things easier, because now
it was okay
I haven't
to
got
lose.
I haven't got another belt to go after, sort of thing. I can't like in front of Paul. I wouldn't want to lose. Like, even though it wouldn't have mattered, because he knew how good I was. Like, so if I got tapped as a brown belt by a blue belt in front of him because I was practicing something, like, it doesn't matter. But in my head, even subconsciously, it's like, you don't want that to happen. Yeah. But then getting my black belt, it's like, the weight has actually almost gone off of my shoulders, because it's like, if someone catches you, who cares? Like, what's going to happen? I'm still a black belt.
Yeah.
They caught me. Cool. Well done. That's actually good. I'm glad, because then they've done something right. So I think that is one of the biggest things that will help you progress.
And parking that ego to one side, just not letting it get bruised by those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think learning that, but also learning it at the same time as having someone controlling my training was really helpful.
Do you think it's helped, Shane, starting later in your sport means that you're a more well-developed person, right?
Yeah.
So now, how old are you now, mate?
I'm 30, I turned 30 this year.
So you're 30 now, so we're a very similar age. You're 30, and you're now becoming a professional, and your brain's fully formed, and you've kind of gone through the things in your early development that maybe you needed to go through. You've figured yourself out a little bit more. A lot of the time with athletes, especially gymnastics, right? Like, you're a teenager and you're competing on the world stage and you don't have a clue who you are even yet. And for me, I certainly found that at the end of my career, my body was so beaten up that by the time I'd mentally matured, my body was gone.
Yeah.
That time was gone. I couldn't get that back. And I was like, I wish I'd have learnt this 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And it sounds to me like, your maturity as an athlete is going to be a real advantage for you.
I agree with that. I do, because I feel like if I'd have started as a kid, maybe I wouldn't have even stuck with it. I feel like actually, so in America, wrestling would probably be the base for a lot of people as a kid before jiu-jitsu. We haven't got that over here, really. And it's very few and far between that you'll find people in the UK who have wrestled as a kid. They've probably got to be Russian, and moved over it or something. But for me, playing rugby, I think, was that base, because I got bored of rugby, obviously, and I got injured, so I couldn't continue it. But I think because having that athletic base helped. But then to go into something new and learning it, like you say, and like maturing as a person, and then being able to stick with it makes a big difference in like God being like the age I am.
Yeah.
Because there's no chance I'm going to quit jiu-jitsu now. Like, and I love it so much, and I feel like despite having an injury at the moment, I still feel I'm fitter than I've ever been. Like, I don't feel like hitting 30, I'm starting to go downhill or anything. If anything, like in combat sports, 30 to 35-ish is like your peak. So having started at 21 years old, it's actually better for me. Yeah. Because if I'd have started at 5, I'd have probably also been battered by the time I got to that age. Like your athletic kind of like combat peak. But now I think I did it in what is the best way for me. Like, it's maybe not the best way for anyone else, but it's the best way for me, I think.
When you started, Shane, and this is for, we're getting towards the end, this is a bit of advice for anybody that's getting into jiu-jitsu, because there's lots of young people getting into the sport now, right? And they'll go in, maybe they're nervous, they'll go in with some preconceptions. What were some of the early mistakes you made first going in that you see people repeating again and again when they first come into a jiu-jitsu gym and they have a training session for the first time? What should they be trying to avoid?
I think, like you said before about ego, just don't worry about it. Like, for me, I can't really think of any mistakes. I'm sure I did make some, but I can't really think of anything specifically that I did. But the thing I think people need to think about mostly is just, you are going to get beaten up. Yeah, you're going to get battered for the most part, especially if you're smaller, or you haven't got the same physical attributes as other people, that you are going to get beaten up a little bit. But you just got to get used to that. Yeah. Like, it is what it is. Like a small girl will come and tie you up and like get the better of you. And you've got to understand that that's because of jiu-jitsu. And I feel like a lot of people, I think more so now, they understand that, but in the past they didn't. Yeah. So it's just like, I'm a big guy, I'm just going to run through someone or whatever. Like, just come in and just have fun. I think some people say, what should I do more? Should I do gi? Should I do no gi? Should I do this or that? It's like, what do you enjoy? If you enjoy it, do it. That's another thing as well. Like, people, I hear people talk about motivation for things. And like, this may sound a bit, I don't know the way to put it, but like, when people ask for advice on, I'm not motivated, I kind of think to myself, like, well, if you're not motivated, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Like,
The passion comes first,
yeah,
motivation comes second.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been demotivated. I've never struggled with motivation. It's like, maybe you're doing the wrong thing. Like, if you're asking for advice on motivation, maybe you just don't enjoy it. Like, jiu-jitsu is fucking amazing. I love it. Like, it's the best thing I've ever done. Like, and it's made my life. It is what it is today. But, like, it's not for everyone. Definitely not for everyone. Like, so if you don't enjoy it, then maybe the motivation's not there. Or maybe you've got to find that point to enjoy it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's different for everyone. That's the thing. That is one thing about jiu-jitsu. It is different for everyone. And that is also a reason why I love it so much, because it's not like you go A, B, C, D, E, etc. It's like you're 70 kilos and you're athletic. So your game is going to be different to this. The guy is 100 kilos, maybe a bit overweight. Like your like journey, so to speak, is going to be very different.
An individual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I like jiu-jitsu, because it's so unique to you as a person. You don't have to know this. Like, you got the fundamentals, which you have to learn, but your game will be completely different.
Yeah.
You might want to be on the bottom. You might be one on top. You might be more flexible. You might be quicker. You might be slower. You might be stronger. Like, there's so many variables which will make your jiu-jitsu unique to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think once you've found that, that makes it a bit easier. Because, like, I think for me, I went in, I think I'm quite lucky. I'm a good weight for both being nimble, athletic, but also being strong. So, like, I'm kind of at that weight where you can be both. Like, middleweight generally is kind of the weight I'm at, are the people that tend to win their weight division, but also be able to win the absolute, which is the open weight.
Yeah.
That tends to be like middleweight, middle heavy. It's kind of like fluctuating between where I am. And I was just lucky that I was already quite athletic.
Yeah.
And I'm in that good weight class. So I was also strong, but I was also fast. I could also actually do techniques properly. But some people might be smaller. So therefore you've got to understand that if you're smaller, maybe it's going to take a little bit longer, because you're going to have to focus so much more on technique than you are being able to just push someone off of you. Like, if you're a big guy, generally you'll be less technical for the most part. Like, there are outliers where you get a technical big guy, but they've not always had to be technical because they can just be stronger. And then if you're only going against other big guys, they're also not really going to be that much more technical. So you're just using bigger guy against big guy. If it's like small guy against small guy, it's like probably a super technical battle. But then you got like a big guy just doing big guy things, and then a smaller guy doing smaller guy things. Like, it almost like evens out the technique to the strength advantage. Yeah. So if you can focus on your
strength,
abilities, exactly.
The sport's for everyone, essentially.
Exactly.
Right? Like, everyone's going to have different strengths and weaknesses that they're bringing to the table, and the interesting thing is, how does that match up? Yeah, which is really cool.
And also, it's not even just people's strengths and abilities, it's also just what you enjoy. Yeah. Maybe you don't like playing guard. Cool, that's fine. Don't have to. You're probably going to have to learn eventually, but, like, you do what you enjoy. That's the thing with jiu-jitsu. I think a lot of people come into jiu-jitsu and, like, if they enjoy it, they'll probably stick with it. Yeah. You don't have to do it to compete. You don't even have to compete. Like, competing is not for everyone. Yeah. Like, it's cool to compete, but it's not for everyone.
I think, you maybe have to be a certain type of person to, like, because, for instance, my partner, when I told her that I was going to do a jiu-jitsu class, she thought I was off my head. Yeah. She was like, what? And she's like, when I tell people you do that, they're like, that's an odd thing to just go and do when you don't know anybody and just turn up. And I was like, yeah, but, for me, I always felt that gymnastics was the way that I found, the best way I found to express myself was through gymnastics. And even today, I'm a bit like you. So I've got a little window this afternoon where I can go and swing around the high bar. Yeah. I just love it. No one's paying me to do it. Yeah. I just love it for the thing. It was great that I had a career and I got paid for it afterwards, but I would have done that even if I didn't get paid for it. Like, I just love doing gymnastics. Jiu-Jitsu feels a little bit similar in that it's a bodyweight sport. And I often describe gymnastics to kids that I'm working with, especially higher level ones. I'm like, look, you need to do very fast mental maths with your body. And so if you're emotional, imagine trying to do a maths exam while you're crying. It isn't going to work. And that's how I kind of talk about gymnastics. I've heard a lot of people describe jiu-jitsu as like playing chess with your body and
Yeah.
stuff. And I think I like it for that, and I like the skill aspect. I really like your sessions as well, mate. I like how you break down those skills. For me, that it's like learning a new gymnastics move.
Yeah.
So you really break it down part by part, and I've started writing notes for now.
Good.
With kind of like little words that make sense to me
Yeah.
to try and remember things. I think I've loved it, and the way I see it is as like a real long game. I want to do this for 10 years.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm in no rush, and I just try to get there once a week if I can get there. And I'm thinking, look, there's no rush because I don't want to compete. I don't want to be the best. I've found a great way to stay in shape, keep fit, and also exercise that competitiveness within me, which I found really hard after retiring. I love it for that, mate. Just to finish off then, could you tell us, like, what's your plans for the future, Shane? Like, do you want to compete at was it the ADCC?
Yeah.
Is that like the ultimate goal? You said that's like the Olympics?
It's like the elite. It's the Olympics of Jiu-Jitsu. That's the pinnacle. For me, that would be kind of like the big show, shall we call it. And there are trials to do that. So I'll go and hit the next ADCC trials, which are in September in Poland, I think. So I'll be going to do those. I win that, and then I get to do ADCC.
Okay.
But not only do I want to keep competing and get to that pinnacle, but I just want to do jiu-jitsu forever as my job. That's kind of like where I'm at because I enjoy it so much, and I'm lucky enough that I've been able to make a job and a career out of it so far. I want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of like, I don't know, there's no end goal to it because I just want to keep doing jiu-jitsu until I'm fucking dead.
That's kind of like success for you, right? Like you've been able, and I'm the same. Like I've been able to turn my gymnastics career into something that now supports my life and my family, and which is just an amazing thing. So I don't need much more than that.
No.
You know, I'm quite happy with that. Like, I enjoy my life, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I just need to keep making sure I can make money with it, which I can so far. So I'm going to keep building this niche of mine, keep teaching, like making instructionals, selling clothes, doing what I'm doing right now, and just keep trying to improve on it. But also, obviously, by competing more and making a bigger name for myself, then that all just comes easier. So therefore, competing, which I do enjoy competing, I enjoy winning, I enjoy just getting better and like showing that I can hang with all these people. That then also helps the latter. So I can make more of a name for myself. Therefore, more people are going to buy my things. They're going to come to my classes. They're going to book me for seminars. So if I can keep doing what I'm doing now and just being the best kind of grappler that I can be, and just learning new things about myself, and new ways to learn, new ways to improve and whatnot, I think that for me is just what I'm happy doing.
Amazing, mate. Shane, where can people find you online and follow your journey from?
Mostly just on my Instagram. So it's Shane Curtis BJJ on Instagram. That's probably your best bet.
And if they're thinking of trying jiu-jitsu and getting into it, maybe in the new year, we're coming up to January. It's a typical time where people get gym memberships, right? But maybe they're thinking, maybe I want to try something different this year, a bit like I did. What would be your best advice for someone finding like a local gym?
I think what might help a lot of people if they're struggling to get down in the first place, go with a friend. But most gyms anyway are so welcoming. Like, I'm sure you can attest for that.
That's one thing I've found that's brilliant.
Everyone's just friendly.
A lot of respect. Yeah, it's really nice. I like that camaraderie of kind of being in the trenches together kind of thing. Like, I've already made a couple of friends that I see every week. And
in fact, a good note to finish on for me, I think, is you can be best friends with someone, but if you've never fought them, then you don't have the same level of closeness as someone I feel that you could know for 6 months that you've fucking beaten each other up every day for 6 months. Like, it's a different type of friendship you make from just trusting the other person as well. Because essentially, if you tap, they let go, they could have killed you. If they just carried on squeezing or carried on breaking your arm, like, they could injure you badly, but you're trusting that person and vice versa. So I feel like that, on top of like actually battering each other every day, day in, day out, like, I think that gives you more of a bond with someone than just knowing someone, if that makes sense. So I feel like just getting through the door a lot of the time is the biggest step. You'll go down, if you're in the right gym, like, another thing as well, like, if you're new to it, maybe if you don't agree with if you don't like the, I hate the word vibe, but if you don't like the vibe of the gym that you're in first, maybe that isn't the right gym for you. It doesn't mean jiu-jitsu is not right for you. like there's different gyms have different ways of teaching. There's different environments in different places. Like, so I feel you just got to find the right one for yourself.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to finish on as well is sometimes you have to try things in life to know that that's not what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
So there'll be some people that come and go, no, that's not for me.
No.
Like, I came the first time, like I said, got strangled like 10 times and went, love that.
Yeah.
I'm coming back next week.
Yeah.
So it probably is for the right type of person. But I always, just to finish, you know, I've said this to people before that are listening, like the last message I always leave with kids when I do assemblies in school is when you're a kid, you have to try as many different things as possible.
Yeah.
And you maybe would attest to this, right? Like, and because everyone will be good at something or have a passion for something. And when you find that passion, it's easy to work hard. And when you work hard, you get good at it. And the world likes people that are good at things. So maybe if you're out there, just try something a bit different. It doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu, but try something a bit new.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to try jiu-jitsu, try it. If you don't, don't. It could be anything.
You might try jiu-jitsu and then end up doing a striking class, and that might speak to you a bit more. So.
I mean, I went to do MMA to start with.
Yeah.
I didn't actually go to do jiu-jitsu. And that's most people's route. They see MMA, they see UFC, they see MMA, they go, cool, I'm going to do MMA. And then they come in and go, oh, I want to do MMA. It's like, oh, there's not an MMA class on today, but we've got jiu-jitsu. Do you want to try it? Yeah. Boom. That's it.
My best mate, Andy Smith, one of my old teammates, lived with him for a while, my housemate. We'd come back from a night out, and him and our other mate would just watch UFC at like 3 in the morning after a night out. Be like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Like, no interest, because I'm like a football background. And 10 years later, I'm now like fully in and like actually training. So, thank you, mate. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Great conversation.